I ask you this, like, what are you going to say to the person who looks to you and says, my business is going to go out of business tomorrow, or I'm going to lose my house next week, and I don't know where my wife and kids are going to be. You're telling them too bad, so sad? I would get it if this was day one. This is not day one. This is week 9. This is week 9 of this. And so you're going to tell those people that it would be just as unfair for you to tell the person that is fearful of their health, no, you got to go back to work. Too bad, so sad. Doesn't matter. It's just as wrong on both sides. Hey, what's going on, everybody? So, sitting here at home on a Sunday in my Puppies and Fitness shirt, so don't judge. But I wanted to make a video in response to the post that I made, I don't know, earlier this week to give some context and some background and just hopefully give perspective. And at the end of the day, my opinion is this: there's so much more to this than the health risks, right? Like, and that's why I had said something about why are these health officers or health officials the ones that are dictating exactly when these counties can open up, and why we're taking everything they say as though that's the word of God. Because the reality of this thing is there's a lot of things that go into this equation, right? There's the health risks, there's the economic risks, there's a ton of other things that go into play. And so it's taking all of this information and then coming to the best solution based upon all of those facts, not just health. And so, I mean, let's be real, like Fauci or whoever, if it was up to them, we would be closed down indefinitely, right? We would be closed down forever, because that would be the best solution for our health, at least in theory, right? There would be, if we just locked ourselves in a bubble and we stayed in our house and no one ever came out, less people would die. We might go crazy, but less people would die, less people would get infected, right? But the economy would absolutely collapse as we know it. The United States of America would no longer exist as we know it. So there's a lot of other things at play. And so knowing that and knowing all of these other factors, you need to take all of that stuff into consideration. And I mean, it's no different than car accidents, right? Like, so if of course, it would be a safer bet and would save more lives if we stayed in homes and didn't drive our cars anywhere. Less people would die, right? Whether it be from car accidents, or don't go skiing, because if you go skiing, you could die skiing or snowboarding or skateboarding or I mean, anything and anything you can think of, right? Like, of course we would all be safer if we just locked ourselves in our house. It's gone too far, right? Like, once this thing happened, we realized, okay, look, like, we're going to be in for a little bit of a ride here. This is a thing. This is a real thing. It's not some hoax, right? Like, this is real. People are dying. It's a disease, or a virus rather, that is clearly infecting at a much faster rate than normal. So on and so forth. It was like, okay, cool. Like, hey, we got a lockdown. Let's do it. And it started with 2 weeks, right? And then 2 weeks became just flatten the curve. Okay, cool. Got it. Flatten the curve. That makes sense. That made logical sense to me. That it wasn't about preventing infections, or it wasn't about saving lives. It was about saving the healthcare system, that we needed to get everyone locked inside so that we wouldn't overwhelm the healthcare system. And then once we were able to put better systems in place, get a little bit more information about this thing, and once the curve was flattened, that we would reopen society and business and the world economy as a whole, and we would be better prepared for it, and our healthcare system would be prepared for it, and that was the game plan. And at some point, those goalposts moved, right? They moved from flatten the curve to we need a cure, and we need to eradicate the virus, and this is about saving lives, and we need a vaccination, and that was never the plan. A vaccination is not even possible. It takes 3 minutes to do a quick Google search to find out how long it actually takes to make a vaccination. A vaccine takes years. Okay, a vaccine is not coming unless it's extremely unsafe and it hasn't been tested, right? That was a whole nother set of problems. A vaccine is not a logical solution at this point. It's just not. Eradicating the virus, finding a cure, not possible. It's not. Okay. So then what is the alternative solution? How long we're just going to stay in home indefinitely? Like we're just going to be in bubbles for the rest of our lives? Like when did it become that? And I think that's the biggest issue that people have right now. It's that the goalposts have moved. We all played along. We did our part. We flattened the curve. We have to now look at the second part of this, which is the economy is going to collapse on a global scale if we don't get back to some level of normalcy. And there's a lot of questions like when it comes to the science, right? Like a lot of those that are proclaiming like we need to stay home and listen to the science. What science? The science where there's been clear evidence that shows that once you get outside and this virus is exposed to heat, sun, UV rays, etc., that it doesn't last a fraction of what it lasts indoors. And yet we're allowing people to go to the beaches, but you're telling them that they can't sunbathe? I mean, explain to me the science that says it's okay to go in the water but not sunbathe. And I understand and get the idea that like you don't want the beaches to get crowded so that you get within your 6 feet distance, but then make that the rule. Don't just say you can't sunbathe, because that actually goes against the science. And so it's those things that I think a lot of people like myself are questioning, right? So don't tell me it's science when you are implementing restrictions or protocols that go against this so-called science, right? We know, look, this virus is not good, right? Anyone who says it's a hoax, okay, that's a whole nother debate that we don't have time for right now. It's real, it's not good, it's worse than the flu. The infection rate is worse than we probably initially anticipated, but the death rate is far lower than originally anticipated. And if you're a healthy human being that is less than 60 to 65 years old, look at the stats. I'm not going to throw them out here because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not here to throw statistics at you because all the stats are out there and available. You can go parse the numbers the exact same way I did. And the bottom line is if you look at the number of people that have died from this that are healthy and under 65 years old, while not zero, your chance of dying is basically zero. It doesn't happen. I mean, it's a fraction of a percent. Okay? This is clearly a thing that affects people that are unhealthy, overweight, have underlying conditions, and are older. Primarily unhealthy and have underlying conditions. That is who this thing attacks. And I get it if you're afraid. I get it if you are more at risk. But that's what this country is about, choice. And we've done what we can. We have all come together. We flattened the curve. And now it's time to go back so that we don't also lose our economy. Okay? We can't lose both. Okay? We can't lose lives and the absolute fabric and foundation of this entire country. And that is what is at risk here. And so this is about choice. It's what America has always been built upon. We came together. We did what we were supposed to do. And now, if you don't feel safe, stay home. If you feel that you're more at risk, or your neighbor or your family member or whoever, and so you don't feel safe, that is what is great about this country, is you can stay home. But for those who are willing to take the risk, okay, who are not unhealthy, who are not in that age range, who want to go out and get back to work to prevent themselves from losing their business, losing their house, whatever, you should be able to do that at this point. We've gotten to a point where that should be okay. And so, look, there's no right answer. I get it. This whole thing sucks. It would be an amazing scenario if we could just make this thing go away, but we can't, okay? And so there is no perfect solution. There is a blended solution that exists right now. And in my opinion, that blended solution is that we've done what we can. If you want to stay home, stay home. And those who do want to go back, take all the necessary precautions. Okay, do everything in your power to make this this thing feasible for the long term. But you know, this idea that we're all in this together. On some level, yes, but on another level, like, we're all in different circumstances. Okay, some people haven't lost their jobs and are still making the exact same thing that they made. They're not in the same boat as the person who has completely lost their job, or is on unemployment, or their business is going out of business. Like, so what are you? I asked you this: like, what are you going to say to the person who looks to you and says, my business is going to go out of business tomorrow, or I'm going to lose my house next week, and I don't know where my wife and kids are going to be? You're telling them too bad, so sad? I would get it if this was day one. This is not day one. This is week 9. This is week 9 of this. And so you're going to tell those people that it would be just as unfair for you to tell the person that is fearful of their health, no, you got to go back to work. Too bad, so sad. Doesn't matter. It's just as wrong on both sides. And the whole idea that those who want to go back, it's all about the money, and that's all you care about, and this is about saving lives. And stop. Okay, just stop. Let me put it into perspective for you, at least from my standpoint. Okay, if let's just take, and Afterburn's not going anywhere, but let's say Afterburn was literally on the brink of collapsing. And I'll tell you this right now, there are a lot of small businesses who are on the brink of collapsing right now, if not already. It's not about the business owner, right? The business owner that wants to go back to work to get his doors open. Guess what happens if that business owner doesn't get to go back to work outside of his business or her business going out? From Afterburn's standpoint, guess what? We employ 100 people. Those 100 people don't have jobs. Now multiply that times however many small businesses there are across the country. Okay, this is not just the small. This is not a the small business owner is going to lose money. No, this is the small business owner is going to lose money, and every single one of their employees are going to be out of a job. And if you think the unemployment rate right now is bad, think about what it's going to look like if that happens. You thought the Great Depression was bad? You thought 2008 was bad? This is literally would set us up for the worst economic disaster that we have ever seen in our lifetime, if this is allowed to happen. Look, we should be held accountable. All those businesses are going to be open. They should be held accountable to have a ton of precautions in place. Don't stop them from opening. Put a ton of precautions. And if they don't adhere to them, then you know what? Shut them down. I'm all for that. But the idea that we're now going to throw another $3 trillion on the table to just keep paying people to stay at home, like, how about we take that $3 trillion and instead of paying people to put their head in the sand at home and hope we come out of this thing okay, how about we spend $3 trillion on getting more masks and improving the healthcare system and doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on all of those things to help getting the virus contained to a level that it should be, right? Like, if we built manufacturing plants and hospitals and things like of that nature with this money, rather than just giving it to people for it to just sit there, I mean, it just blows my mind. Let the businesses go back, let our taxpayers make some money, put the money back into the system the way it's supposed to be. And if you want to do a stimulus package, put that money into something that is actually effectively working on the cure for this virus. At the end of the day, there's been a switch in our country, I believe, and that's this idea that it's more important to be morally right rather than factually correct, right? Like it's just about feeling good. Like, it feels good to say we're going to save lives, right? Like, that's the moral thing to do, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, but just because something is morally right doesn't always mean that it's factually right. And I think that is the line that we can't, it's got to be a blend of morality and factual, the best plan to go forward, taking into account, take into account the health and well-being, but it's also about taking into account the economy, the financial well-being of individuals and the country as a whole. I wanted to take a few minutes and just take a second and just explain why I believe it is time for us to open. and that it is not that nobody cares about lives. We all care about lives, but there are a lot of things at risk here. We want to do what's right for everybody, the health and the well-being of everybody, but the economy as a whole. And so that's it. That's all I got. I talked way too long, but I thought it was important for me to take a few minutes and give some perspective. So I wish you guys all the best. Be safe out there, and cheers.